Fairfax County Democratic Committee, and where are we? Okay, I'm just really excited that you're here. There's a couple things that we do that I'm going to remind you about now, and then I'm going to remind you about after we have some of our guest speakers speak. First, if you'd like to ask a question, there's the Q&A feature. So you can use that if you have a specific question. That sends a message to myself and Jack as we manage the meeting, and we'll be monitoring throughout the meeting. If you want a private response instead of a response that we could be sending to the whole committee or responding to in person, make sure you indicate that in your question so that we handle that appropriately. If you would like to raise your hand to indicate you'd like to speak, there's the raise your hand icon. If there is an issue where we are having kind of debate on both sides of the issue, I would request that you use Q&A instead to say that you are for or against the motion. But we'll figure it out if we can't do that. But that's the big thing. And then how to vote. If we do have a recorded vote, we will send a poll out to the people who are attending. Once you answer, the poll will go away. But when we share the results, you'll be able to see kind of the results as we share them with the entire committee. So we've done that a couple of times. Hopefully that's not new. And now we can head into the agenda and minutes. And my first question is, are there any changes to the agenda or minutes? And seeing no hands raised or no questions in chat, I'm assuming there are no changes to the agenda or minutes. So is there any objection to approving the agenda and minutes? Seeing no objections, the minutes and the agenda are both approved, and we can move on to the approval of new members. And I have this list of new members. I do kind of want to note that one or two of these districts has not confirmed those lists with me. But I think regardless of the ordering of it or whatever, FCDC can affirm the election of these members when they're elected by their districts or respective districts. Is there I don't know if I need a motion to approve the minutes. I guess I'll just by de facto we'll move to approve the new members to the election of the members and the respective committees. I have a motion from Rachel Rice, and I'm assuming there's a second out there. Is there any discussion, or are we going to do a poll? Or I guess let's just do it this way. We have a second from Benzel. I'm going to lower all hands. Are there, or try to lower all hands? Are there any objections to approving the new members? Seeing no objections, the new members are approved, assuming that they are also approved by their district committees. So maybe I'm going too quickly because I'm expecting. I see now in chat that there was an object to one. So I don't know if that was after I ruled on that, but I guess it passed. Okay. Okay, we can move on to the introduction of special guests and candidates, and let me see if any of them are here. Jack, can you help me on this? Is anyone here? Okay. Okay, that's not the order I had, but that's fine. Let me see if I can do that. There we go. Perfect. Okay. I'd like to, I guess, introduce. Oh no, did I mess up the? Okay, Jennifer Deli, candidate for the House of Delegates. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Wow, hi, I'm so excited to get to go first. Lucky me. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Jennifer Deli, and I am running for the Virginia House of Delegates in the 34th District. And this is the first time that I'm coming to FCDC to talk to you as a candidate instead of my former role. So I'm really excited to be with you, and I wanted to make sure to use this time very wisely. So I started to think at first, like, I could tell you about my background, my 25 years of experience in government services. I could tell you the story of how I came to DC with only $200 in my pocket. I could share that I was the first woman in my family to get a college degree. I could tell you about my battle with breast cancer, and I could talk about my blended immigrant family. I could, of course, remind you that I'm the vice chair of the Community Services Board and the chair of the Fiscal Committee, overseeing a $200 million budget. And of course, I would not want to go without reminding you that I'm the immediate past chair of the Drainesville District Committee, where we were honored with the award for the best district committee in 2019. But all of that, including the Drainesville chair, you can read on my new website at jenniferdeli.com. So instead, I want to use this time with you tonight to talk about something very important, which is about the topic of a primary and how every election presents the opportunity to make a choice. It's a gift. It's a moment to look at where you are now and where you want to go. That proverbial fork in the road. And then you get to ask yourself, can you get to that place in the future, your vision, with the elected leadership that you have today? I am running because I think when it comes to the 34th district, I believe that answer is no. After 4 years of neglect at the federal level and a daunting, significant work ahead of us in Virginia in the post-COVID era, we should all have a sense of urgency now to elect leaders that have a vision and energy to propel us forward. Now, I respect very much what Delegate Murphy has done during her 5 years representing the 34th. It is true that she's contributed to the conversation and helped move us forward on the issue of gun control. But even on that flagship subject, the most impactful laws were carried by other members, such as universal background checks, red flag laws, or the one handgun a month restriction. Other members of the General Assembly were leading on that topic. To keep Virginia moving forward, we need leaders in the 34th who can tackle multiple intersectional issues at the same time. We need to look forward and not sit still. That is why I'm running to bring my diverse lived and professional experience to the General Assembly. I'm ready to champion a post-COVID recovery that works at least as hard for employees as much as it supports corporations. The voters in this district shouldn't have to wait until 23 or 25 or 27 or even beyond that to start thinking about their future, not when we have people now who are ready to have this conversation. So I said that every election is a choice, but only if you actually give the voters one to make. We know that Northern Virginia is solidly blue, and if we don't present voters with an option at the primary, we might as well accept that we're not really offering them a choice at all. So that's why I'm running now in 2021, because this conversation simply cannot wait. I ask for your support, and I invite you to our official campaign kickoff this Thursday at 7 o'clock. Information is on our website at jenniferdeli.com. You can also sign up to volunteer and, of course, to donate. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
I think I'm sharing your the website again, jenniferdeli.com. There was since our other candidates aren't here yet, and to stall for a second, there was a question for you. What is your stance on paid internships, and will you commit to paying your interns?
Sorry, hold on, I put myself back on mute. We do not have an internship program yet, but if we do are able to develop one, then we would certainly expect to pay our interns. I fully believe in that. I was an intern at one point myself in my career, so I know that it's very valuable and people should be able to be paid for their hard work. We do not know yet if it's, I mean, we're planning for a June primary because that redistricting timeline keeps moving out and then now it's moving back. So we don't know that we'll be setting up an internship program between now and June, but if that schedule does change, I think we'll be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. Our next guest is here. Yeah, my lighting is terrible. But thank you. Our next guest is our Commonwealth's attorney for Fairfax, Steve Toscano. Steve, are you there? Oh, you're on mute though.
Mute. I'm on mute. Hey, here I am, everybody. I think you guys can see me. Fantastic. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to drop in and say hi, and really before I get going, just take a moment to congratulate everybody for all the work that you've done during the election cycle. Obviously, it turned out great, and I think the inauguration a couple of days ago really is something that everybody can be proud of, because I know how hard everybody on this call worked for years to bring Virginia blue, and that became the blueprint for the rest of the country. But what I really, besides that, what I wanted to do is just have an opportunity about a year in just to touch base with everybody. I've spoken to a lot of people at the district committees, but haven't gotten to everybody. Just to give you a one-year report very, very quickly to let you know that in the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, we have been making great strides on the reforms that I know that so many of you are so interested in. We're doing things like we ended cash bail. We have a mass incarceration policy that is really aimed at fighting mass incarceration from a number of different angles, whether that be getting rid of mandatory minimums in plea agreements, treating kids how they should be treated as kids instead of adults when we make our charging decisions, and how we deal with people, and really just hitting home that idea of trying to do more diversion as well, so we keep people away from the criminal justice system that we don't need to be there. And then, of course, we're working at the state level as well. I've been working with a lot of our delegates and senators in the General Assembly. We have a lot of great things that we're working on. A couple of days ago, the death penalty getting rid of the death penalty moved out of committee. That's something that we've been really pushing on. Trying to get rid of mandatory minimums has been another thing that I've been really working with our senators and delegates, and that looks like it's moving forward. So long story short, all the hard work that you did, a lot of you did 2 years ago, is paying off both locally and statewide in terms of the criminal justice reform that we're starting to see come down the track. So that's really what I wanted to stop in and say thank you, and to let you know that if I haven't got a chance to talk to you, I'll be at your district committee meeting where we'll be able to take more questions and have more conversation. But again, thank you very much, and thanks for having me, Brian. I know I only had a couple minutes, so I had a lot to get through.
Well, thanks for joining us. We're always we're happy to see you, and happy for your work. And I think someone who is a notable supporter of you is next. The 72nd governor of Virginia, and also a candidate for governor again, Governor Terry McAuliffe. Governor, you're on mute still. And that might be my fault.
Yeah, mine says unmuted. You hear me?
You're good. You're good now.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you. Well, evening, everybody. FCDC, Steve, great to be with you. The great job you're doing. And Brian, thank you and everybody for all you've done in Fairfax. What an exciting year. I went to the inaugural last week, and I got to tell you, it was something. Walking through the Capitol to get to my seat, and to go through that Capitol and see the shattered windows, the boarded up windows, and then walk out and have Joe Biden take that oath of office. I tell you, it was as exciting as it gets. And I just want to thank everybody in Fairfax for helping us get that huge win, 400,000 win here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And Fairfax was a big piece of it. I thank all of you for the great work you've done. I've seen many of you. I did 45 events in 19 and 20 in Fairfax for our candidates and the party, and just honored to be with you tonight. We announced on December 9th, ready to go big, bold. We got to take Virginia to the next level. We got to deal with this COVID crisis. How do we rebuild a new post-COVID economy? Sort of like when I became governor last time, I inherited the largest deficit, left the biggest surplus 4 years later, rebuilt hundreds of thousands of new jobs. And if you get a chance, go to Terry for Virginia. We've rolled out a lot of big policy initiatives. I started with education. We have got to tackle education here in Virginia. if you take average teacher pay, we rank 50th out of 50 states. That is a disgrace for the 10th wealthiest state in America, 50th out of 50. And we need to get our teachers to pay above the national average. I've promised to do that with a $2 billion investment for the first time in the history of Virginia. Get 41,000 at-risk 3- and 4-year-olds pre-K. Every single child needs to have broadband in the Commonwealth of Virginia, scholarships for our teachers. So I have a big plan on education that you can look at my website. I've come out with a COVID recovery plan. I've come out with a nutritious plan. I've come out with a gun violence prevention plan. I just rolled out this week a huge criminal justice reform. As you all know, this was something very important to me. I restored more felon rights than any governor in the history of America, and Republicans sued me for contempt of court. It's time that we get it out of the Constitution and we give returning citizens the right to vote immediately. We've got to get these massive assault weapon guns off the streets. So I'm excited, ready to go big, bold. We cannot tinker around the edges here if we're going to get Virginia where it needs to be to lead the country in the COVID crisis, to be the #1 state on education. And that's why I'm running for governor again. And I want to do it with a Democratic legislature. We're going to have a huge battle. We've got about 10 House of Delegates seats that, we've won, that we've got to protect to keep that majority. And Fairfax is going to be a big piece of that. I've rolled out a whole bunch of endorsements, many obviously from Fairfax, from Jeff McKay, Sharon Bulova, our speaker, our Senate leader, and so many other folks. This is an exciting, big, bold coalition of folks we got put together. I wanted to get on this call tonight and say thank you. The petitions are going on. Let's try and get the petitions done for every candidate out there. The more running, the merrier. It's great for democracy. And I just want to say thank you. It's going to be an exciting year. 2020 was as good as it gets here in Virginia. Getting Abigail back in, getting Elaine back in, of course, Jennifer back in, winning the White House. In 21, we have got to keep this governor's mansion. It is absolutely critical, and keep that House of Delegates and help at the local level. So, folks, I'm fired up. Sleep when you're dead. Let's go. Game on.
All right. Thank you so much, Governor.
Right.
And we're going to have we have an exciting year this year. The governor's website is terryforvirginia.com. And I saw in the chat, I think too, that there were a whole bunch of links to plans. So take a look at those if you're interested. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're heading into the actual business of our meeting. Just to remind you, if you have a question, use the Q&A feature. If you have a private question that you just want me, Jack and I to answer to you directly, make sure you indicate that it's a private question. And if you would like to speak, click on the raise your hand icon. If there is an issue, we're speaking on both sides of the motion, use the Q&A to say that you're for or against. And now we can head into the treasurer's report. And I am going to turn it over to our treasurer, Nadia Golding.
Unmute. Okay, I'm unmuted now, right? All right, well, hello, you put me right after Terry. That was really smart move. Makes my dry report sort of drier, but did want to let everyone know that FCDC has approximately $97,000 in the bank, and we are doing quite well financially for a COVID year in particular. You can see that on the front page here, but Brian's picture is in the way for me to see it as I move it. We're on pace to finish the year on fundraising, pretty much on budget. We're just beginning the fourth quarter, so we're doing pretty well there. And for operations income, we're also on pace, and we're above pace on the voter contact income. So for income, we're on pace to make budget, and we are spending slightly less than we had budgeted, partly because of COVID. So we will end the year doing pretty well. The district committees have $85,000 or $84,700 in the bank, and the second page shows how much each one of them has. And the only other thing I wanted to add was not in the report yet is how much we made on the road to Richmond, which we did really, really well on. So our total net on that was, our gross was $17,788. And since we had about a $4,000 worth of expenses, our net is in the 13,000 range. So if there are any questions, let me know. And if not, my report's finished.
Okay, thank you. It looks like I might want to recognize, kind of out of order, but the campaign manager for Delegate Murphy would like to speak. And since we gave time to Jennifer Deli, I think that is the responsible thing to do. So, Mr. Gaze, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to say a couple words. Delegate Murphy's still in session tonight, and that's why I'm sure you're missing a couple other delegates tonight. But wanted to introduce myself and put my contact information in the chat. I'm excited to run a great race, and always excited for the opportunity for a primary, and looking forward to either June or August. I'm excited to put on display the record and commitment that Delegate Murphy's had to this district for the last 6 years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I know the delegates, we were supposed to have the delegates, some of the delegates for us earlier, and they are busy right now in committee. So understandable, but thank you for joining us, and interesting primary we'll get into. So thank you. All right. There was a question that I was trying to answer kind of on the fly. Why is budgeted net income negative? Of course, we set the budget last year. And I'm going to talk about FCDC budget again shortly. But what we had planned to technically we lose a little bit of money in the scheme of the year, just because it was a year where we didn't have a lot of membership income. But it seems to not be the actual case. That was just the plan versus reality. And now we can move on to my report. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen again just for a second. There's a lot of things that, and actually, Jackie dismissed one of them I was going to talk about. There's a lot of things that have been going on. One has already been mentioned. We kind of expect that because of the delays in the census data, that we're not going to have new districts for elections this year. So the current thinking is that we're going to have June primaries with the current districts, current district boundaries, and then that in elections in November, and then next year we'll have court-ordered elections in new boundaries. So that's just kind of our current understanding of how things are going. I don't know that any of that's completely finalized, but it just seems to be the path we're on right now. And kind of related to that, in my responsibility as chair, before this end of this month, I have to appoint nominating committees for each of the House districts that touch Fairfax County. And really, those are just people responsible for receiving the filing and petitions for the candidates that are running. Just related to that a little bit, and just to remind people, I think I mentioned it at the last meeting, but the Democratic Party of Virginia decided to change its party plan and to require a primary. So there was there are no decisions about any of that. All of these races, if there are a challenge to any of our incumbent delegates, as they're all Democrats, they will be by a primary. Another development that happened, I think it was yesterday, but maybe the day before, but there was a court kind of order or agreement that made it so that the statewide candidates only needed to collect 2,000 signatures instead of the standard 10,000 signatures to run for statewide office. And also related to that is that electronic signatures are for petitions are going to be accepted. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but when we find that out, we will and when we get links from candidates to sign those, we will share them kind of just broadly for people who would like to sign those, sign the petitions for candidates. Just some kind of personal updates regarding FCDC leadership. The steering committee met to have a strategic planning session and is working on a strategic planning document related to that. We have a couple working groups kind of related to that that are working on plans for this year. The task force that was created for the purpose of making recommendations related to caucuses and the composition of steering completed its work. We decided that it made the most sense to spend time educating people on those proposed bylaws changes so that we're not rushing those changes and that we can get it right. But between now and the next FCDC meeting 2 months from now, we'll be taking a tour of the district meetings to talk about those bylaws changes in more detail. And of course, we'll share the text of those bylaws changes more broadly as well. And lastly, in the next week, I will finalize the appointment of a task force related to the handling of resolutions. I think we've been generally okay, but just in my experience, and one of the things I ran for as FCDC chair was to make FCDC meetings more enjoyable. And I think, at least in my point of view, the things that are kind of the most troublesome and take the most time are handling of resolutions. I'm looking for ways that we can kind of streamline that and improve that. And I hope we'll be able to share those things with everyone soon. And I think the last thing that I have for my chair's report is that per the FCDC bylaws, I am required to share a draft budget with you all. So this is a very, very early rough draft budget, and it still requires input from most of steering. So this is just kind of a very first pass. Just to remind you, our budget year is from April 1st to May 31st. So this budget would apply from April 1st of this year of 21 to May 31st of 2022. The projected starting balance, I think it's a little conservative, but we're projecting a starting balance of 100,000. The planned income that we have in this budget is 306,000, expenses 301,000, so a net increase of 4,000, give or take. So we're basically the plan is that we could raise money and spend that money in this next year. And just very briefly, because this is still a very in its infancy, and I don't know how well anyone's going to be able to see any of this on their screen. This is kind of the summary of that budget. Talking from the high level kind of line items that are there. It's like 180,000 or so of the finance committee net income, and that's primarily the fundraising driven income. We expect that we will have membership due income again as we're going to do reorganization at the end of this year going into next year. And then, of course, we also have district assessments per usual. That kind of puts a general bottom line of just over $300,000 for income. And then for expenses, we don't have a finalized joint campaign plan, so the numbers in here are really just placeholders. And there's no clear direction on or decision on some of these things like back to school. But right now that's $80,000 for the joint campaign, another $12,000 for the standing committees and some other expenses. And then our operations expenses, which are always the most expensive thing that we have to do, or just the continual operational expenses we have, are $209,000. So that's the office, that's staff, that's technology, that's things that we pay for that cost a lot of money over time. I don't know if there are any questions, but we will But if you do have questions, send them to me directly. We are going to consider this budget at the February and then March steering committee meetings before we share it with the membership for our March meeting. So we'll have plenty of time to look at a budget before then. But I just wanted to share that as I was required to do. I think now we're ready for vice chair's reports, and the first vice chair I know has a report is Nora. Well, I guess she's not a vice chair. She's the standing committee chair, Nora Dell, who is the state and local committee chair, and she's there. She is. I'm pulling her up.
Hey everyone. Can you guys hear and see me potentially?
Yeah, let me stop sharing. So I'll go back to sharing, but yes, we can see you.
No worries. Hey everyone. My name is Nora. I'm the chair of the State and Local Affairs Committee. We have a couple of things coming up. First, we have an event tomorrow. It's on the search for the next Fairfax County Police Chief. We're going to be thinking about the future of policing in our community, what we're looking for in a police chief. And we've got some great panelists who are going to be joining us, including Supervisor Rodney Lusk from Lee District. We're also going to be joined by Professor Lori Robinson from George Mason, and also two members of this Fairfax County Police Civilian Review Panel, including Hansel Aguilar and Jimmy Bierman, who's also on FCDC. So it should be pretty great. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. That event is going to be tomorrow at 7 p.m. And I hope that you guys can join us. In addition to that, we just had an article out in the Blue View a few days ago about some of the other work that our committee is doing. And I just wanted to provide a brief overview of that. And I'll also drop the link to that in a second. But some of the items that we've been considering in our January meeting included vaccine distribution to undocumented Virginians, getting Title III funding for English language learning in our schools. Our housing and eviction working group is working on a push to eliminate a 45-day cliff on evictions. And finally, and you'll probably hear about this later in the meeting, we are endorsing a resolution that is about forced arbitration and contracting transparency. So I'll speak more about that when that agenda item comes up, but I wanted to mention it here. And I'll drop the link to that recap. There are a few action items if you want to take action to contact some of our elected representatives on some of those items. We would greatly appreciate it. And that link I'll send in a little bit. And yeah, lastly, I just wanted to invite everyone to the State and Local Affairs Committee. If you are looking to work on local issues, we'd love for you to join, or state issues. And yeah, I'll put my email in the chat as well. And if you just want to come and listen and attend, our meetings are at 5 p.m. on the first Tuesday of every month. So thank you so much, Brian. That's it for me.
Thanks, Nora. I will say also, Nora is one of the standing committee chairs who has now taken advantage of publishing an article in the Blue View about what their standing committee is doing. And I would encourage other standing committees to do so, but also, but for you to take a look at the Blue View to see if there's a kind of content that's relevant or good for you there. Okay. Are there any other standing committees? Or are there other vice chairs or standing committees that would like to speak? Oh, yes, okay. There's one I forgot. Go ahead, Vice Chair of Finance, Tina Barczyk.
Hi, did you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we talked a lot about finance tonight. It's always about funding the committee. I think we had a great year last year, and I just would like to thank everyone for all that they did to support the Fairfax County Democratic Committee. Our next big event is the Pick Your Pony straw poll. It's going to come out it's going to be on March 21st from 4 to 6. So look for that date, and we hope to have all the candidates, there, and another year of an exciting straw poll. So again, thank you for all that you guys do and how much you participate, and we look forward to another strong year of fundraising. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Tina. I think on behalf of the FCDC Education Committee, we have Jeffrey Sherratt. Jeff, I'm moving you to panelist so we can see you maybe. Are you there, Jeff?
Okay, cool. I'm in. Thanks, Brian. I'll just launch in. Just want to give hopefully a brief update on some things. Yes, as where to begin? So on the February 2nd, the school board is going to be having their next meeting to discuss the superintendent's plan for school reopening, which has been a pretty hot and contentious issue, as I've mentioned before. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens since there's been some recent developments. Some of you have probably heard, I saw it mentioned in the chat just recently, the vaccine rollout from Unova for the teachers was initially, or at least last I heard, has been delayed. So there's an expectation that all the teachers would be able to get pretty uniformly all their first doses and second doses, and now that is currently up in the air a bit. So that throws a wrench in the sort of smooth running of the sort of hybrid plan where they're going to start bringing in small numbers of students for short periods of time, like 2 days a week type of thing. So you can find out more about that with the school board, but that's just sort of the brief overview of that. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because it intersects with a Republican effort that I have mentioned before to attack the school board using this issue, which is frustrating. And thankfully, we passed the resolution last year to shore up support for the school board on our support for the school board, part of which included a measure encouraging our elected officials to refrain from trying to coerce the school board or the school systems to open through threats of funding cuts. Unfortunately, State Senator Chet Peterson with State Senator Morrissey and State Senator Donovan has submitted a budget amendment doing that very thing, making funding for school systems dependent on offering an in-person option. That is not really that is sort of going against what we want with the resolution, so that's a bit of a problem. And it is a little extra frustrating since we have seen some of the highest COVID numbers very recently in Fairfax County and in Virginia. So that is, that's all I'm going to say on that at the moment. As far as what we're doing otherwise to help the school board, I've been working to get a team of volunteers to help sort of the school board members on social media and with their fundraising. And one new thing that I'm looking for potential volunteers for is basically one thing we've been noticing, monitoring the groups attacking, pushing against the school board, is that they have a bit of a monopoly on the sort of explaining of what's going on with these school reopening issues and things related to that. Because these issues are complicated and frankly rather confusing when you're trying to figure out what the teachers associations, what parents, what the school board is doing, what the school administration is trying to do. There's a lot of complicated factors going on, and there could be more clarity. And the school board has a lot on its plate. And one thing that could be a big help for members of the committee is to put together a team to just try and write our way through when things come out, when there's things that need explaining, providing a source and a voice for that sort of explanation. And I think we'd get a lot of attention and approval from parents in the county who are obviously already struggling to understand what's going on in their lives due to just being inside with kids all day. And so to not have to to make it easy for them to understand what's going on. The school board has a lot to do. Parents have a lot to do. If we could find some volunteers to make a team that kind of goes through some of these issues, maybe with the education committee, to put out a sort of an explanatory narrative out there is something I think would be very helpful. So I'm going to drop my email in the chat for anyone who wants to reach out to me about that. I'm part of the education committee, and so obviously you can reach out to them as well, and they'll put you in touch. I apologize for that was a little quick, but try not to, get bogged down in forever FCDC meetings here, but that's what I got to share. So thank you, everyone.
I was going to hold up a 30-second card if I could find one.
But give me a taste of my own medicine from years past.
Yeah, yes. But thanks for that update. It's important. I did mention, call out directly that Senator Peterson's actions seem to contradict the wishes of FCDC with regards to our resolution on evidence-based school opening. But thank you for your update. Nellie, for diversity, I think she had an update. Nellie, do you have an update?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Nelly Samaniego, President of the Diversity Committee. Yes, I wanted to let you know, because I know there's so many new members. The mission of our committee is reach out, inform, and mobilize minority communities. Every year, the Diversity Committee organizes activities honoring communities in the area. In February, our first activity will be celebrating Black History Month. We will be focusing on the historic Black neighborhood of Bailey's Crossroad. Bailey's Community Center is a place that supports and serves local communities of color, offering programs to youth and adults. We will donate school material and office supplies. On Thursday, February 11, a small group of members and volunteers from the Diversity Committee will be delivering the donation to the director of the center, Alicia Simon. Our second activity will take place on Saturday, February 20 through Zoom. We will have a trivia games and singers. Dr. Reverend Wilton will give the invocation. We will also have our official school board elected, Karen Kiss-Gamara, Mason District and Chair, Ricardo Anderson, and Ruth Nilu from Lee District. And our third activity will be our tutor program. Reese, are you there? She is the one who's going to give more information about this event. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Reese.
I have to be unmuted.
No, we can hear you.
Can you see me?
Oh, do you want me to turn on your camera?
Yeah, if
okay.
you can.
Hello?
Now I can't see her. There she is.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yes, so the second part of the program, it's celebration of Black History Month, and we will be tutoring the underserved communities near the Vienna Baptist Church. And so it will go on the calendar, and it will work like this. If anyone wants to sign up, you sign up through Nellie, RSVP through Nellie. I think it's diversity at Fairfax County Dims. Well, Nellie.
No. It's a different one.
Okay, but
yeah,
Nellie
I will place in the calendar. I will send all the information to Jack.
Okay. All right, sounds great. So what we'll be doing is you get to choose the date and the time that you tutor a student. You can choose to tutor in math or writing. So you can choose whatever you would like to do, but this is Black History Month and we're giving back to the community. You can use an hour of your time, you can use 2 hours of your time, you can use 30 minutes of your time, but it will be in February and we will send the date around. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian.
All right, thank you. Let me send everyone back, get everyone situated appropriately. Sandra Clausen, Chair of National Affairs Committee. Go ahead, Sandra.
For me, all right?
Yep.
Our committee is working on two projects. We did have a request after our October Trump Unhinged webinar. We had a request from a number of FCDC members to try to look into analyzing and coming up with some perspective on how to deal with the Trump cult, the 70 million, the insurgents, and how to analyze and deal with them. So to that end, I invited for our last meeting Professor Richard Rubenstein, the University Professor Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution at George Mason to come speak to us. We looked into and studied a number of these issues from the point of conflict resolution. And Dr. Rubenstein has said that he will talk to a couple of colleagues. We are going to put on some kind of a panel when we get this together, including him on conflict resolution, and also our former speaker, Dr. Justin Frank, the psychiatrist, and his colleague, Dr. Bandy Lee, have also agreed to talk about cults. So we are working towards a panel on this issue to try to understand this 70 million Americans and where they're coming from and how to deal with them. That's number one. And then we're also working in the long term for a healthcare forum. And I also put from the Blue View a book review from one of our members from the Blue View. So please take a look at that. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, next is Shanley Hoff, the chair of Veterans and Military Families.
Hello, everyone. I just want to give a quick report. The Veterans and Military Families Committee voted unanimously to support the resolution on eliminating forced arbitration clauses. As most of you know, the forced arbitration has been used against veterans and military members who are in the Guard and Reserve, and they've been fired and then not able to say why, what was going on in terms of their firing, so weren't able to keep the clause which allowed them to be able to serve their Guard or Reserve duty. So we strongly support that. In addition, I just want to share that we had one of our members, Sarah Helfer, write an article for the Blue View as well on military and veteran outreach that happened during this last cycle and that can be very effective in this upcoming cycle, especially when we go to rural areas. We know that some of the canvassing that we did when in 2018 with Elaine Luria and Abigail Spanberger in the western parts of Jennifer Wexton's district were very effective. So take a look at that, and hopefully you'll be able to learn a little bit about what we can do to help make sure that we maintain a democratic trifecta.
Oh, thanks, Shanley. Anyone else? Last call before we move into new business. Oh, Kelly Hebron, chair of the new chair of the FCDC Black Caucus, but also the chair of the Lee District. And let me know if you want me to put you on camera. I can.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Either or. Hi everyone. Yeah, Brian, maybe you can put me on camera. I'm looking into a dark hole.
Okay, it'll take a second to switch. You're on mute. I think it remuted you when you switched. There you go.
I see it. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Hebron. I'm, as Brian said, the new chair. Well, many of you know me as chair of Lee District Dems, but I am also now chair of the Black Caucus. We had our first meeting on this past Sunday, and we would like for everyone to spread the word that we are now up and active and running, that we will have our meeting. Our meetings will be 7:30 on the fourth Sunday of every month. Our next meeting is February 28th. Look for announcements. But we certainly would like to spread the word that we are up and running, and for any members of any districts, rather any members that are interested in getting involved, to please come and join us. That's it. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, actual last call. Oh, there's another hand. Oh, gotta put Reese back in. Reese is Reese, the chair or slash editor of the Blue View.
Am I muted or?
You're good.
Okay, so I just wanted to encourage everyone, if you have an event that you've done, we would love to hear about your event. So if you've done an event and it's gone well or it hasn't gone well, we would love to have your article to be in the Blue View. So for instance, DAV just had their first inauguration, and so they're getting an article in. So if you have an event that you've done, if you are running for office and you want to do a candidate background on you, please submit your article. Thank you. And please give us at least 24 hours to respond.
Okay, thanks, Reese. Okay, last call, final call. All right, well, let's move on to new business. And for the purposes of potentially having this meeting kind of end at a reasonable time, I would like to suggest that we move to suspend the rules and limit debate. And the proposal that I have here is to limit debate to no more than 5 members in favor and 5 members opposed to a resolution with no more than 1 minute each. I have a motion from Mr. Savage and a second from Ms. Dell. Are there any objections? Raise your hand or send a question. Last call for objections. Seeing that there are no objections, the 2/3 requirement for suspending rules carries, and we can move on to the first of the 2 pre-planned things that we have for new business. So the first one is a resolution that what was suggested by we already heard from military veterans, military families has recommended it, and I think state and local did as well. So there's no need to get a motion or a second on it. And I can bring up the full text. Of course, we shared this with everyone ahead of the meeting, but I'll pull it up just so everyone can see it here. Oh, I'm doing this in the wrong order. No, let me move back then. Sorry, I apologize. This comes from the Environment Committee, the resolution to support the adoption and implementation of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors and School Board 2020 Joint Environmental Task Force JET goals. And these are, this is a task force that was created by the school board and the Board of Supervisors, has a set of kind of recommendations from it. And we're asking the Board of Supervisors to do it. I think you can move my face if my face is in the way. I can just turn off my camera maybe. If that helps any. And so here's the resolution, the full resolution. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to see it. I'll leave it on the screen as we start discussion. I think I would like to start discussion on this with someone from the Environment Committee to speak for it. There's Ken. I was looking for you. There you are. Ken, go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. You can turn on my camera if you want. Yeah, I think you did a good job of describing this. The JET report, the Joint Environmental Task Force, was set up by the school board and the Board of Supervisors, and it has some strong goals on climate change and energy. It focuses on the county's own operations, so buildings, vehicles, etc. Getting buildings to net zero energy, replacing diesel school buses with electric ultimately, so kids won't be breathing those diesel fumes, and meeting basically sending a message to our elected officials to follow through on their promises to take aggressive action on climate change, to make Fairfax County and Virginia a clean energy leader, and to support the Biden administration's climate change goals as well. And so we use the words adoption and implementation. So basically to make sure that this report does not just sit on the shelf, but actually gets adopted and implemented. This has been run through the Education Committee. It's been approved by the Steering Committee. Happy to take any questions and discuss it with anyone offline. That is basically what it's all about.
Okay, thanks, Ken. It was pointed out, and I neglected to mention this, that the FCDC Steering Committee did, at its last meeting, did vote to recommend ratification of this resolution as well. So thanks for reminding me of that, Sandra, and also in your remarks, Ken. I see Pat McAloon has raised his hand, and I'll allow him to speak now. Go ahead, Pat, if you have a question or comment.
Brian, that wasn't an intentional click on that for me.
Oh, no worries. Is there any other discussion on this motion to approve this resolution? Seeing no questions and no additional additional discussion, let's go ahead and pull the question up for people to vote. So go ahead and make your selection now. I can say we still have a quorum somehow. Haven't scared everyone away yet. Okay, another 10 seconds to vote. Last chance. Okay, we'll close polling now and share the results. And it's almost unanimous, very widely recommended. So thank you everyone for your consideration. And we can move on to where I was getting ahead of myself earlier. The FCDC supports transparency in state and locality contracting, bidder or offer disclosure of use of forced arbitration. So it's my reading of it was kind of a nuanced way to oppose forced arbitration through the use of state and local contracting. And I'm going to pull the full resolution up, but I think the introducing, I'm trying to think of who introduced the motion, or I mean, it has been recommended already by standing committee, so it's already on the floor. Or is there anyone who'd like to speak? Okay, Ellen Strauss, go ahead.
That was an accident.
Okay, no worries. It happens. Mr. Spitz, Stephen Spitz, co-chair of Election and Voter Protection. Go ahead.
Yes. Basically, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, this is a huge ongoing scam by a lot of companies. When you sign, the long thing like a credit card, cell phone, what have you, that you give up your right to a trial by jury guaranteed by the Constitution, and they get an arbitrator to decide. This is just simply wrong, and I support the motion, the resolution rather.
Okay, thank you. Julie Strandley was kind of the originator of the motion or the resolution. I don't know if she wants to speak, but I'll allow her to now if she wants to. I will also mention that this was, oh, no, that's fine. Julie, have any additional comments?
I would be happy to provide background information if there are no questions and ready to vote. That would be great. This is an opportunity because of the federal preemption. State and local governments cannot ban forced arbitration, but as we have found, companies, when they submit their RFP responses to our local governments, they are asked to disclose liabilities, vulnerabilities, and pending litigation. And as Stephen mentioned, forced arbitration is done in secret. It is the way to undercut and avoid the enforcement of duly enacted laws. So this resolution and the bill that we are working on with Senator Sorrell, which is supported by the school board, would give the county, the localities, the option and availability to obtain this information.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Any other comments, or should we just call the vote? Oh, sorry. Oh, someone else has their hand raised. Liz Walker, go ahead. Liz, did you have a comment?
Sorry. I was just wondering on the paragraph that talks about discrimination, wage theft, and other illegal practices, the part that says there also is a wealth of evidence that businesses that violate the law also provide substandard work, but there isn't a law in Virginia against arbitration, is there?
Julie, I don't know if we.
They're just talking about illegal practices and wage theft against those kinds of laws.
I would let Julie
There's no law.
respond.
The forced arbitration prevents the enforcement of discrimination, wage theft, and other practices that are contrary to One Fairfax and to Virginians. So I'm not sure. There is not a law that prohibits arbitration because there is a federal law that has been misconstrued by the Supreme Court that our delegation, led by Don Beyer, Jerry Connolly, Jennifer Wexton, Bobby Scott, Senator Kane, Elaine Luria, and Abigail Spanberger, are working to completely ban at the federal level.
Well, I think the question was the second part of that paragraph. Businesses that violate the law, I think, is just general like employment law, like wage theft and other issues. The businesses that violate those laws also provide substandard work. Is that correct?
Right. Consumer protection laws, employment laws that protect service members, civil rights, consumer, and employment laws. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Brad Swanson, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have a question about the wording on the second of the two actionable items here. The first one refers to state legislation allowing localities to ask bidders, and then the second part of that statement, allow localities to consider that information. The second one refers to allow agencies to ask bidders, but then the second part of it says allow localities. So I just wondered if there was a drafting error and you meant to say agencies in the second part of that second one, or if localities really is the right word to use there.
Brad Ferber, the editor. Julie, do you have a comment?
Yes, that should be agencies. I thank you for that.
Okay, if there is no objection, we can amend the resolution to say to be corrected as intended, agencies. Okay, thank you. Morgan Jameson.
Hi there, good evening. Would it be appropriate to, in the so be it resolved, include 1099 contractors, which are often overlooked, but are subject to very similar arbitration laws, and there are more individual 1099 contractors, solopreneurs, than there are corporations or other businesses that have that. So I think it would grossly impact folks who are commonly misclassified as well.
Okay, James McCarthy.
Can you hear me?
We have a nice echo, but yes.
Okay. There's no such thing as a 1099 contractor.
Okay. Well, we didn't have a motion. I think it was an observation that contractors are.
I mean, if I need to make it a formal motion, then I'll do that. I was just trying to save the committee a vote.
I think Julie, you should be able to. I'll let the author of the resolution respond. Julie, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. So we have changed the language a little bit in the statute, in the bill that we're working on. Why don't we change own employees to own workforce in both 1 and 2, and that should take care of that question.
Is there any objection to changing employees to workforce?
Yeah, just because I think a lot of people would argue that 1099 contractors are not part of the workforce, they are contractors. I mean, that's why California just redid its entire labor law practices to redefine 1099s. So from an HR side, I think it should be more explicit than implicit.
So to clarify, you're saying that contractors are not part of the workforce?
I'm saying other people would argue that.
Or you're just objecting so that we need to have a vote?
We should have both. We should list them both out.
Well, as of this moment, the amendment that was not done without objection is to change the word to workforce. And if there's no additional discussion, there are raised hands. I don't know if I'm going to lower all hands. If you have discussion related to the amendment, please raise your hand now so that I can allow you to speak. Christopher Schaefer, former Braddock District Chair, go ahead.
Okay, so I would just, because of the thing 1099 contractors, to use the term subcontractors. That would be the appropriate term. But I do support Morgan's amendment.
Well, to clarify, the amendment on the floor is to change the word employees to workforce. Would you like to make a substitute?
I would let Morgan do that. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Jameson, do you have a substitute motion?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to change the word employees to workforce. And we will call the question. And I apologize. I probably should have made this more clear, but we're the motion is to amend the resolution to use the word workforce instead of employees. Okay, 10 seconds remaining. We can close the question and share the result. So the motion to amend the resolution to change the word employee to workforce passes. Let me pull this up on here so I can actually change these words so we can see them. Is there any additional discussion? I saw there were a couple of hands. We only have, I think, 3 points of discussion left. So, Ed Levine.
Hi, I just came in and I'm sorry if my question has already been answered. I'm wondering what the origin is of the 3-line quotation and why the resolution doesn't say whom we are quoting.
Thanks. Julie, can you answer where the origination of that quotation in that last paragraph comes from? And I can't hear you, Julie, if...
It comes out of a reference to the Fair Pay and Safe Workplaces executive order, and I can put this in the chat and you can add that. And I'm sorry that fell off the bottom.
Oh, okay, I don't see it here. Yeah, okay, thank you. Jeannie McCreary, go ahead.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, is there any final discussion? Seeing no additional requests for discussion, let's call the question on the resolution as amended, and that is with a without an objection amendment to change the word agency or localities to agencies in the second kind of clause there, and then to change the word employees to workforce. So a vote now would have FCDC adopt this resolution. Okay, another 10 seconds for votes, please. Last call. And I guess to remind people, if you are in full screen, you might need to exit full screen to see the poll. Okay, let's go ahead and close voting and share the results. And again, very widely adopted as amended. Thank you for your discussion, and thanks for getting that right. So, okay, I think that's all I have for the visual part of this presentation. For new business, I have a request from Mr. Jerry Fultz, who was the first person to make the request to make the motion that FCDC join the coalition to repeal the right to work. So go ahead, Mr. Fultz.
Brian, you said it well. I so move.
Okay, and the second person to who wanted to make the motion, I will now recognize Mr. Dan Press.
Thanks, and thanks, Jerry, for making the motion. I would ask that we amend the motion to also include the specific endorsement of enactment of HB 1755. I think I have the bill number correct. Jared, do you agree with that amendment?
Jerry, you still there?
Yes, I accept that.
Okay. So now that it's moved and seconded, it is on the floor, and I don't need to worry about taking a vote on the on that amendment. So the motion on the floor is that FCDC join, and maybe I can type it so people can read it. If I can do this quickly enough. It's kind of hard to juggle all these things all at once. Let's see. Okay, that FCDC joined the coalition to repeal right to work. I think that's specifically the Virginia coalition to repeal right to work and endorse HB 1755. Is there any discussion? Ms. Sandra Clausen, go ahead.
Hi, in preparation for the discussion, I put in the chat some information to inform people's vote. In February of 2020, I submitted a resolution to the Democratic Party of Virginia State Central Committee entitled the Democratic Party of Virginia Petitions for the Repeal of Virginia's Right to Work laws, and it was passed unanimously. Those of you who work with DPVA know that this almost never happens, that any resolution is passed unanimously. Also, at the DPVA 2020 convention in July, the delegates overwhelmingly ratified another resolution entitled the 2020 Virginia Democratic Convention supports enacting legislation to protect essential workers' rights during the pandemic and strengthen the labor movement for long-term worker protection. It included a complete reference to repealing right to work, and that was ratified. So the DPVA, the convention, have all ratified resolutions overwhelmingly supporting the repeal of Virginia's right to work laws. This is therefore the official Democratic Party of Virginia position on the issues. It would seem to me therefore extremely appropriate for FCDC to join the coalition. Thank you.
Thank you. I've seen some notes about requesting that elected officials sign on as co-patrons. Should we add the PRO Act? I don't really want to go through the exercise of writing a resolution on the fly in an FCDC meeting with 250 people here. Is there anyone opposed or anyone who would speak? But there's a request specifically for anyone who is opposed to this motion. And I'm not seeing anyone raise their hands who is opposed to this motion. But if someone is so inclined, they can let me know so that we can recognize them. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Matt Bell, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just reiterate what Sandra said, and thank you for mentioning that, and thanks everyone for joining the panel. I would just maybe add, instead of us endorse, that we encourage our Democratic endorsed House of Delegate members in Fairfax County to support it, or something a little more actionable than just us endorsing it, because that doesn't really do anything, us endorsing a bill that none of us as non-electeds could do.
Okay, so you do want to you do want me to write a resolution on the fly. Oh my goodness. Let's see if I can find specific words that we've used before. And that the Democratic, the Fairfax County Democratic delegation support. Is there a DPPA resolution? Matthew, give me a link. Someone help me. Support. I don't know. Support's the right word. Oh my goodness. It's like we already have resolution.
I agree with Dan Press. I think something like that's good. I think if we get too wordy or too far in the weeds, it kind of makes it more easy for people to weasel out of not supporting it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say DPPA at its convention already basically adopted something, as Sandra probably could tell us, has already adopted something like this. I don't know how important it's going to be. I think that the bigger thing that we're actually doing is joining the coalition to repeal right to work. Are there any objections to changing the words to what they are right now? Okay, Marcus hasn't spoken yet. I'll allow him to speak.
Yeah, my only question was, I would have liked to have read the actual bill before I voted on it. If I'd known that this was going to come up with this meeting, I would have had an opportunity to go look at it online. And now I need to vote on it without even knowing what's in it. So I was wondering if maybe it would be better if we just voted in favor of repealing right to work, but leave maybe not vote specifically on HB 1755. And that way someone could always make changes if they didn't like some of the contents or something like that. I'm just saying that because I feel like I'm taking a shot in the dark. I haven't even read it.
Brian, the bill's literally one line. I can read it right now if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. It just says that we're repeal Article 3, 40.1-58 through 40.1-69 of Chapter 4 of Title 40.1 of the Code of Virginia.
Okay. I thought usually I've seen other bills and they're usually much more involved than that. I thought there'd be a lot more details.
Yep, that's basically it right there, Brian.
I mean, how does this affect people that don't want to join the union? I guess that's what I'm concerned about.
Okay, thanks, Marcus.
All right.
Is there any other discussion? George Hodgman?
No, that was just a mistake there. Nope.
Okay. And Greg Brandon, maybe I think your last final comments before we vote.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Brian. In the pre-meeting discussion, it seems like one of the main speakers the main ask was to ask Speaker, or to urge Speaker Fillicorn to assign HB 1755 to a committee. And of course, it would be the House Labor and Commerce Committee. So I'm suggesting that we don't need any resolution. We don't need anything. We just simply inform our readers of the weekly What's Happening, what the deal is, and ask them to, support HB 1755.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I mean, the thing that we do need to positively vote on, if we're going to do it, is that we're joining the Virginia Coalition to Repeal Right to Work. I think that encapsulated in calling on our delegation to support the bill, it also is included. Part of our delegation is the speaker, so I think we're covered there. Let's go ahead and vote. Not seeing any other hands or any other questions. Since we are doing this on the fly, it will require a 2/3 vote to adopt. Sorry. Jack has has it right in the actual wording, but last call for votes. I mean, we did have a 30-minute panel before the meeting discussing this topic, so hopefully not a complete surprise. Okay, let's go ahead and voting. And share the results, of course. The motion carries very easily, so thank you. And we can send a message to the coalition that we are joining them. Okay, is there any additional new business? Mr. John Farrell.
Thank you. I didn't see that there was a report from election, so I just wanted to bring you up to speed. You all remember we had 5-hour waits to vote early this past fall, and the electoral board is starting to try and figure out how to avoid that result this coming fall. It's expected that we'll have 150,000 people hope to vote early. And so what the electoral board is thinking about is to expand the number of early voting sites for the full 6 weeks from 1 site, the government center, to 3 sites. And they're also considering opening the satellites on a Sunday before the election. So I would ask FCDC to support the idea of having more satellites open for the full 6 weeks, and to support the idea of creating a Sunday for early voting, and I would so move. And communicate that support to the electoral board.
Sorry, can you restate?
Yeah, for FCDC to communicate to the electoral board its support for having more satellite voting sites open for the full 6 weeks of the early voting period, and to have the satellite voting sites open on a Sunday during the early voting period. Early voting period, Mr. Chairman?
Well, if I had written, okay, and Sunday, something about Sundays?
And to open the satellite voting sites on a Sunday during the early voting period.
So my understanding is that, well, first of all, personally, I have already told the electoral board of my support for this, as I think you have as well, on behalf of FCDC, and they already voted to consider opening on a Sunday, which I think is also being authorized by legislation in the General Assembly as well.
Well, it doesn't need to be authorized by the General Assembly. If nothing happens at General Assembly, they can open up on Sunday. I just want the full membership to support communicate the idea.
Right. Okay. And just to clarify, there was a report from the, I don't know if it's assistant registrar, exact title, the person responsible for satellite voting, their early voting in person, that had proposed that that they don't open more than one site initially, but our Democratic members of the electoral board, Kate Hanley and Bettina Lawton, voted to overrule that. So what they're looking at now is do I need to spell check? What they're looking at now is oh no, okay. They're looking at now is having 3 open for the entire period. Are there any questions? I guess I've got some hands raised. Russ Bickoff, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me, Brian?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second John's motion. I just sent a chat message recommending that in your draft, after you correct the spelling of satellite, you specify a number, because they're already talking about opening 3, as John said, maybe say more than 3. And if you want more than 4, why don't you say, give a number, like a number, as large number as practicable, or 5 or 6 if practicable, and then add, you also have the Sunday opening as well. So I would support John's resolution. I'll be the second if you need one.
Okay. Okay. I mean, the words that I have changed, and I don't know if there's a, Mr. Farrell, if you have an objection to that, to support having 3 sites open for the full period, and then to open on a Sunday. Okay. Comments. Let's go ahead. Liz Walker, go ahead.
Yes, I was, somebody suggested, I think it's, wherever it was, Pranav Chaudhry. He's suggesting that maybe 1 satellite site per magisterial district, plus the city of Fairfax. And I think that that would really be a nice element, rather than just saying 3 or more. And this other one, having been an election officer at a satellite voting site, I don't think that Sunday is necessary, especially if it's open for the entire early voting period. So I'm wondering if we could possibly vote on this like 2 ways, with the full suggestion of the 1 per magisterial district, and then a second question on a Sunday. I think that's overkill personally, but
well, everyone is conspiring to make this meeting last forever. But the comment though from this is, I think, in the intent of Mr. Farrell's resolution, he can speak if I'm wrong, but the electoral board has already voted to do this, to have 3 sites,
right,
and to open on a Sunday, or consider opening on a single Sunday. So it's already in motion of this. I think the idea is that FCDC is supporting them in this. But so I don't know if you still want me to separate them, and which were.
So that's okay. That's okay,
Okay.
but I do like the idea of the 1 per magisterial district. I think that would be excellent.
I would say, just from a general, something that I neglected to say in my chair's report, we're working on a list of recommendations based off of the last election. And some of that is specifically, for example, the Franconia Government Center is a terrible early voting location, and should not be used for early voting. I think we're already in the situation where we already have one satellite location per magisterial district. So I think that might be a duplicative request. I'm seeing multiple people say at least 3 sites. Okay, additional discussion. Noradell, go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. Given that the steering committee is also working on a list of recommendations that may well include this, I was wondering if it would make sense to motion to table this resolution and incorporate this suggestion into that list that is presumably already going to be conveyed to the electoral board.
Okay. Is there a second? Oh, there is a second from Richard Chu. And that's not debatable. So we're going to have a vote, require a majority vote to table this motion, which I think might take a moment for us to come up with a poll for. So just hang in. Oh, there it is. Go ahead and make a decision on that choice. If we move to table, that means that we won't consider that the rest of this at this meeting. Well, for now.
A single Sunday is
Okay, I'll give 10 seconds for Nicole. Okay, voting is now closed. And the motion is tabled. I do thank Mr. Farrell for bringing this forward. I think I think you have the support of FCDC. I think we're just figuring out the mechanics of actual words on this, and there are things in motion anyway. So thank you. Is there any? I'm going to lower all hands. Is there any additional new business? Seeing no questions or hands, we can move on to announcements. That's just wrong. Okay. Please raise your hand if you have an announcement. I've been told that requested that Maritza, Chair of Mount Vernon, could speak first. So go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Brian. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this meeting that is always fun and sometimes too long for some, but some fun for others. But I just want to extend our invitation from the Mount Vernon District for our 13th annual Mount Vernon Dance, Mardi Gras and Straw Poll. It's going to take place on Saturday, February 13 at 7 p.m. We're going to have a lot of fun. That link is already at the website, mbdemocrats.com, and at the FCDC calendar, so you can go and buy your tickets. Please join us to celebrate this special event. If you have any questions, contact me, maritza@quenospasa.com. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
I am being reminded that, and even though we're not in new business anymore, if there's no objection, I'd like to move back because typically, as we head into the second year of the biennium, we reduce the membership cost of FCDC membership, and we need to do that by motion. So I would like to make a motion that we reduce the voting member membership fee to $40 and the associate membership fee to $20 for the rest of this year. Is there a second? There's a second. Are there, I'm going to lower hands from all the people that had things before. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Are there any objections to, are there any objections? Mr. Stockman has his hand raised. Do you have a question or an objection?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I would also like to remind people that waivers are in order. If people need a waiver, they can get a waiver. That's all.
Okay, thank you. That is a good point to make. You know, the membership fees help FCDC do the work that we need to do, but we never actually require you have a membership fee. You know, because not everyone, especially in a time like now with COVID, not everyone can pay. Lois, did you have a question or a comment? Just raising your hand to say hi. Okay. There is a question in the chat from Liz Walker. Do associate members pay dues? Yes, they do. We had a discussion about that when we created associate members and we set dues for them. But just like a regular member, their dues can be waived. So it's not an actual requirement. It's just a suggestion, a request. Are there any objections to adopting the lower membership fees? Okay, seeing none. Let's move on back to announcements. I apologize for that detour. And Mr. Veerman of Drainsville, go ahead.
Hi, two quick Drainsville events coming up this Saturday at the Great Falls Library from 12 to 2. We're going to have a drive-through petition drive. We will be having petitions for all candidates. So please come by again, 12 to 2 this Saturday at the Great Falls Library. Secondly, I want to announce that we are going to be holding a March Madness, pick your favorite Democratic primary candidate straw poll on March 6th. I'll drop the registration into the chat. Thanks everyone, and hope to see you Saturday to sign away.
Oh my goodness, more straw polls. Okay, thank you. Saddam, where'd you go? The Saddam Salim, co-chair of the Providence District. Did you have an announcement? I think you do. I think you just need to unmute yourself though.
Oh, I was talking this whole time. What I was saying is that we, at Providence, we are currently at our strategy session. So once we get through that, we will have full slate of events for 2021, along with a couple of forums as well. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Are there any other announcements? Okay, hearing none, and there being no further business before this committee, we are adjourned. Our next meeting is the 4th Tuesday of March, which is March 23rd at 7 p.m. or 7:30 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you all have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.